In normal times, we would now have aliyot to the Torah. People would be honored with blessings. And in the call and refrain in those blessings, the person who is having the aliyah, the coming up to the Torah, becomes a leader for the community. For it's our tradition that when we hear the Torah read, it's a reminder of that moment in our collective past when we as a community stood shoulder to shoulder before Mount Sinai. And in that call and refrain before each aliyah, we are called together. For the rabbis teach, emphasizing the words of the Torah, that the people at Mount Sinai were yachad, they were together. And so each aliyah calls us to be united in order to be the recipients of God's teaching, of Torah, which means how to move forward, how to lead a life collectively as community. Our parsha this morning of Leviticus, beginning chapter 9, is Parsha Shmini. There's 3 parts to the Torah reading. Chapter 9 is a celebration. The Mishkan is the tabernacle. Literally, the word shochein means to dwell. It's a dwelling for the Spirit of God to be placed at the center of the encampment and to lead the people when they march. Aaron, Moses' brother, is the Kohen Gadol, the chief priest. And Shmini has Aaron preparing the tabernacle for the beginning of its use. And so chapter 19, the offerings brought of dedication, are uplifting. We are identified with joy of Aaron in preparation. And then chapter 10, which is what I will do my teaching on, is of sorrow. Aaron has 4 sons. His 2 elders, Nadav and Avihu, will bring an offering, and they will tragically die in the midst of approaching context and to do a little teaching about this tragic moment of Nadav and Avihu. The final chapter, chapter 11 of Shmini, deals with forbidden and permitted animals. In one of my favorite translations of the Torah, the Living Torah, there are actually pictures. It's one of the few times that he has drawings of all these animals, because for the birds in particular, there's no clear indication. For animals, they have to have a hoof, forked hoof, and chew their cud. So that's mammals, domestic animals. For fish, we're told they have to have fins and scales. But for birds, they're just listed. And so some birds, many birds, are forbidden and some are permitted. And I love looking over all those birds. That's chapter 11, which will say also at the very beginning that, that how we eat is another expression of service to God, of discipline. Our Haftorah this morning is from the 2nd book of Samuel, and Haftorahs are linked to the theme of Torah reading. In the 2nd book of Samuel, our Haftorah chapter 6 will describe David bringing the ark, that ark that was described in the Torah, that had been kept in the town of Shiloh, what is now Judea and Samaria, and as he leads it to Ir David, to Jerusalem, the city of David, a description is presented of the king dancing before the ark. And I pause with the opening nigun that Hal began us with today of Shirat Hayam, of the Song of the Sea. At the end of that long song, we have a description of Moses' sister Miriam leading the women with tambourine and dance. And as I prepared to understand Shirat Hayam this year a little bit more closely, I read that in Hebrew, there are 11 different words for dance. That spontaneous expression of rejoicing is an integral part of ritual, is an essential part of our biblical tradition of celebration. And so David dances with musical instruments around him as he leads that ark, that Mishkan, toward its resting place in Jerusalem. And now, the story of Nadav and Avihu, the beginning of chapter 10. Now Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, each took his fire pan, v'yetnu vahen esh, and he placed fire in it, v'yasimu aleha ketoret, and he placed upon it incense, v'yikruvu lifnei Adonai, and they drew close for an offering before the ever-present one. Eish zara, a foreign fire, asher lo tziva otam, that had not been commanded of them. V'teitze eish milifnei Adonai, and a fire went out from before God. V'tochal otam, and consumed them. V'yamutu, and they died. Lifnei Adonai, before the ever-present one. V'yomer Moshe el Haron, and Moses said to Aaron, Hu asher diber Adonai lemor. This is what the Lord meant when he said, Bikrovei ekadesh, when I draw close to make myself holy, ba'al penei chala'am, and before the entire people, echabed, I shall be honored. Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. A tragic moment, enigmatic. What did Nadav, whose name means giving, and Avihu, God is my God, my father, what did these sons, these nephews of Moses do that warranted death? It's just 2 verses, but much commentary. Vayikra Rabbah are the commentaries of the rabbis of the early centuries of Israel, the early rabbis. And there, the first comment focuses on their intention. And the statement in Vayikra Rabbah 20:10 is, Nadav and Avihu, young men, they saw their father Aaron, the priest, and their uncle Moses, and they said, this is how the rabbis imagine their ill intent. They said, one day we're going to be in charge, not them. But there's no reason to wait, no reason to consult. We are the heirs. Let us step forward and let us bring that first offering of incense. And for their pride and their arrogance, that is why they were taken out by fire, because of a fire that they would have wished to have brought. Now that's the first opinion in Vayikra Rabbah. Rabbi Levi says, it's more than that. These guys, Nadav and Avihu, it's about their ill intent. They were so arrogant that they would hold themselves out as superior to everybody else. They would brag about how, at least to each other, how their father was the high priest, their uncle was as if he was a king, their other uncle was a prince, and they would say, none of these women are good enough for us. Nobody, implied by Rabbi Levi, was good enough for their sense of superiority. Rashi, the great biblical commentator of France of the 11th century, he refocuses on the act itself. And he says, what is it that warranted their death? That they acted independently. They brought Eish Zara, a foreign fire, but more, they didn't consult with Moses and Aaron. They had the hubris not to follow the rules. Emphasized is that the fire that they brought was a foreign fire, a strange fire. The emphasis is that God determined the way of the offering, and the rules were laid out. But in this case, Nadav and Avihu decided to become their own agents, their own deciders, and so they were punished. Now, understandably, for some of the rabbis, this is very troubling. After all, it's death, the highest penalty. And it's not clear what this Eish Zara is, this foreign flame. And there are those, the Biur, a later commentator among them, who says, this was a death of ecstasy, that they drew close to God with their incense offering, and as the smoke rose, so their soul rose. One thing I ask of you, O Lord, quoting Psalm 29, to dwell in your sanctuary. And they, in their ecstasy of union with God, were left with their spirit alighted. But for most of the rabbis, overwhelmingly, like in Vayikra Rabbah, theirs was a punishment and not a reward. A punishment for choosing how they were to be obedient, for choosing rather than consulting, for asserting their own authority rather than honoring the authority of those who were in charge. All the more were they, as potential role models of obedience, a source of danger for the unity of the community. You see, Moses and Aaron, they were just getting the sanctuary was. Collectively, we will worship God. Not everybody choosing how and when. That's how paganism worked. Paganism, people had their own little gods, and everybody could choose what and how they worshiped. But here there was a sense, not unlike Mount Sinai, that for the people to be close to God, there needed to be a sense of discipline. There needed to be a sense of authority. There needed to be a sense of collectivity, so as to know how to fulfill the will of God. V'chai bahem. In regard to the mitzvot, the Torah will say, and you shall live by them. You see, these ritual laws were not the highest level of obedience. That was to take care of another person. And at the same time, ritual laws, as in dedication of the tabernacle, were the way that community found the strength through each other to be one. This tragic story of Nadav and Avihu and their own hubris of rebelling against the rules and the order of collectivity is a reminder of our own success. It's not easy, this moment that we're in. Frankly, for most of us, it's more an inconvenience than a great hardship. We do have refrigerators filled with food. For many of us, we have an Apple TV with Netflix and all kinds of movie channels. At the same time, it's not how we would prefer to live. We would prefer to be able to give our friends a hug or at least a handshake. We prefer to be able to go out to restaurants. We would prefer to be able to be here in the sanctuary rather than on the screen, though I am hearing good responses to watching on screen. It's not the ideal. The ideal is being together. And we can celebrate in our own community, in California, in Orange County, and nationally, the leveling off of the coronavirus. And yet, it's not done. There is more discipline, collectivity for us to defeat this foe. When we retreat into our homes, it's not an act of passivity, it's fierceness. It's precisely a collective fierceness. It's saying that when we all together follow the authority of our leaders to take care of each other by not spreading the coronavirus, we are being wise and we are being responsible. And so in contrast to Nadav and Avihu, with much yearning on their part for their own expression, their own self-expression of religiosity, it ended in tragedy. And for our rabbis, largely, in critiquing their behavior, they wince. For there is a time in which to dance freely, but to dance well, like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. To dance well means you first got to learn the basic steps. Before you can improvise, you have to be working with listening to the music and responding to the immediacy, both of the discipline of having learned how to dance and to the music that flows. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, may we hear the music of the goodness of our lives, your many gifts to us, and may we respond. But may we do so with discipline, as we have, so that collectively and fiercely we can do what's needed to protect our health. And within our own homes we have choices. There is that room for creativity and spontaneity. And yet, may we hear the music that guides us to protect each other and to celebrate your many gifts to us. May we dance with discipline and rejoicing. Amen. Our service now leads to the fourth piece, Musaf. Literally, the word Musaf means additional. Page 184, Kaddish, that will be followed by the Amida.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah ve'olma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'imeichon uv'chayei d'kol beit Yisrael b'agala v'izman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lam me'omaya yivarach Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar, v'yitramah, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei, d'kudsha, v'richu, le'elah, min kol b'chata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, namiran be'yama v'yimru. Amen.
Before the Amida, some prayers that when I do my sermons, I move into a space that leaves me disoriented at the end. So a few prayers that I overlooked that are appropriate and are said in and around our Torah service. The first is a prayer for healing. And this prayer is collective. It has a pause in Hebrew. And amidst that pause, you are invited to bring to mind the name or names of those loved ones who are in need of healing. And in this moment of collectivity, I also invite all of us to pause and to pray for all of those who are ill due to coronavirus, and do so in the back of our minds with gratitude to all those who enable our lives. Mishberach Avotenu v'Motenu Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah v'Yivarech v'Rapei et ha'cholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimalei rachem lahem z'gdam l'rapotam v'yishlach lahem refuah shlema l'chol evareihem v'gideihem b'toch shachalei Yisro v'yoshvei tevel refuat ha'nefesh refuat ha'guf Shabbat him l'zok hashtabag l'zman kariv v'nomar Amen. May the source of healing, who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal our loved ones. May the Holy One in mercy strengthen them and heal them soon, body and soul, together with all others who suffer illness. And together we say, Amen.